Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am so excited to have you here because I know we're going to talk a lot about content creation, content strategies, everything to do with content today. So I am super thrilled to have you here. Why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do?
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, Henriette. It's very exciting to be here. So I'm a content writer and I help business owners and podcasters just like you with content creation, blogging, web copy, and content repurposing. And I do that mainly from videos and audio, so podcasts, to written content, so to blog posts or to LinkedIn content.
That's amazing. How did you get started in all this? Because I find it fascinating always to hear people's stories about how they got started, how that's kind of evolved and taken you to where you are now.
Yes, well, it's a long story, as I'm sure they always are. But for me, this started back in 2016. I had worked as a business analyst for about 13 years in telecoms and retail mainly. When I left my job back then, it was a decision that came out of the logistics of having 3 children. At the time, there were 1, 4, and 7. So I had 1 at home, 1 in nursery, and 1 in school, all with different routines and different pickup times, different places they needed to be in the day. It was chaos, and I was traveling into London 3 days a week. Basically, I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up with any of it. And then obviously there's always chances that one is ill, one has a Christmas show or some other sort of production that you keep having to ask your employer for favors. And you know, I need the day off, I need an hour off, I need, all of a sudden I'm not here. And so it wasn't working. It wasn't working for me at home as a mum, because I was always on the back foot, always catching up. With the nanny probably spending more time with the children than I did. And it wasn't working at work because I was always the part-timer who, you never get the biggest projects because obviously you're not there or you're only there. I wasn't working Mondays and Fridays, and, projects carry on without you. Meetings happen and you're not there. So it wasn't working at home, it wasn't working at work. So I said, okay, I need to be doing something else. Gave my notice, fell down the stairs, broke my leg. And,
oh my God.
And that was it. So they were like, okay, now you can't walk for 4.5 months. And I'm like, great news, because just when I decided to just be a mum, be at home, be present, I can't drive, I can't do anything. I can't even go up the stairs to change a nappy. So not great news, but it kind of put everything into perspective, because I was really stressed, and I had not realized that before giving my notice. In a way, I was kind of in denial. You kind of get this message of you have to be able to be doing everything, you have to be strong, every mom has 1,000 things to do. Who are you to complain? Who are you to say I can't keep up? And so for me to acknowledge that I was stressed and probably very close to burnout was a difficult thing to do. But obviously breaking your leg just puts everything into a different perspective. You kind of all of a sudden stopped. And I had the time on my hands to just literally sit there and work out what I wanted to do. And that's where I started my blog. I started a lifestyle blog that helped me to basically just get my thoughts on paper. So all the things on paper, on screen rather, but all the things I wanted to learn about, all the things that mattered to me at the time. So there was a lot about mindfulness, about managing your time, about balance. So things that mattered to me at the time, things I wanted to learn and find out more of. And so as I found out, I was writing about it. And that also helped me with the writing side of things, because I had this kind of nugget of an idea when I left work that I wanted to write. I knew I was good at writing, but I didn't know how to turn that into a business, if it makes sense. And so when I left, I had no idea how I was going to do this. And my blog sort of became my training ground, as I call it. Because it allowed me to learn. And then I joined memberships, I joined groups online. I was absorbing everything I could, podcasts, Any content that could teach me how to do this thing called blogging, I will be consuming. And so I learned over about 18 months. I had this, the blog became a lot bigger, and not just, it wasn't just me reading it at some point. And so a few people started to get to know me from that platform, and that sort of became my portfolio as well, which then allowed me to reach out to people, and also have people reach out to me saying, can you write for my website? And that's how, in a way, the business was born. And then obviously I developed over the last 18 months to 2 years, I kind of refined the services I offer. So at the beginning, I was like, I am not sure what I'm offering. But as you know, these things evolve over time. You kind of have to work out what is it exactly that you do and who do you do it for. So that came a bit later, but it started off from the blog, I would say.
That's amazing. And I think there's your story kind of goes a twofold in a way. What I love about it is it just shows that anybody who desires writing can be a good content writer. It just takes practice. It's like any skill. You can learn a new skill. It just takes practice. But also the other entity of it is, hey, if you're not a content writer and you're not very sure about writing any kind of content, get somebody to do it for you. It doesn't mean that because you don't fancy content writing, you have to push and force yourself to do it just for the sake of doing it. You can always find somebody else who can do it for you.
Yes, totally. It makes sense. Like I outsource graphic design and things that I am really unable to do. And even, to learn how to do it and to do it well, it's two different things, isn't it? Yeah, I outsource. And as I'm sure you do, you just outsource the things that you're either not good at, don't want to do, and don't have like an inclination to learn. Some things you want to learn, some things you don't, and that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think the audience here, obviously, they're listening to us talking and going, yeah, I love blogging, but I don't kind of find the engagement on it. Maybe because the way I'm writing my content doesn't really inspire people or connect with them. Or some of the audience are listening here to this going, okay, well, I want to write great content, but I'm not sure where to start. Or some of the people here is listening to this and go like, I just give up. Talk to us about the importance then of having a content strategy and why everybody needs to have a content strategy.
Yes. So you touched on something that a lot of people say to me the same thing, like, I'd love to do it. I've heard that I have to do it, but I don't know what to write about. And so, for me, I get ideas all the time, but, I understand that it's not for everyone. But I think the most important thing, I guess, is to take a step back, and that's why a strategy comes in. A strategy is important, and actually, if you have worked on a marketing strategy with someone, if you have a solid marketing strategy for your business, then this will be a lot easier, because content strategy is just a part of your wider marketing strategy, really. So why is it important to have this strategy? Because obviously that way you know what you are going to be posting about. You don't sit at your screen on a Friday afternoon going, right, I'm going to write a blog post. What am I writing about again? Nothing will come at that point, right? We've all had that feeling. So it's important to plan in advance, but you've got to plan in advance based on what you want to achieve in your business. So I always say that your content needs to tick 3 boxes, basically. There's an SEO box you need to tick. So you need to write content that people search for online. Mm-hmm. Otherwise they won't find it. You need to write content, therefore, that works for your clients, but you need to write content that works for you as a business as well. And I think we miss that bit a lot as content creators, as business owners, because we've got all this knowledge, we've got all this information. So what we tend to do is to create the how-to pieces of content where we give 5 tips on to do this, or 7 tips to do that, or 10 tips, or 300. And they are brilliant. Those things are brilliant to showcase your knowledge. They're great for your clients, and they are great for SEO, because if you write a really awesome piece, or with like 20 pieces of advice on how to do this, you're more likely to rank in Google than the person who wrote a small 300-word article about it. So they give us, they're valuable, but do they really give us advantage? Do they bring us business? Do they actually drive people into our business? Do they save us time? So for us as business owners, we also need to create content that helps people make better buying decisions. So things like case studies, things like testimonials, things like, I call this objection handling. So for example, if you have a client who comes to you and says, oh, your services sound amazing, but I just really can't afford it right now. Sometimes, and I'm sure we all hear that, but often there's something behind that. And that thing is often to do with, well, that's great and it will work for X, but it's not going to work for me because of X, Y, Z in my personal circumstances. So it's our jobs as business owners to bring that up, bring that to life, and highlight that the people we work with are people who are just like them, our prospective clients. If we helped Emma over there, we're able to help Paula over there because their situation is different but similar. And so when people start to be able to relate to what you post, then they can start to see, okay, so she can help me too. And that's where I come to your website and really consider buying. And then the next step to that will then be, okay, so now I'm considering buying, I'm ready to do this, but how does it work though? Because none of us want to embarrass ourselves. We don't want to go to someone and go, well, actually, I've never worked with a business coach. I don't never work with a content writer. I don't know what to do. What's the process like? You know, what do I need to do now? Do you need time from me? What do I need to give you? People have lots of questions, and so we need to preempt those questions and create content around that, which helps us again to, it helps people to make a buying decision. And it will be a better buying decision because when they press that buy button or they phone you or they go into that Zoom call with you, they're pretty much sold. They just need that kind of final confirmation, and they've got all the information to make a decision. So that content also saves us time and I do that a lot now when I have a discovery call with someone, say about web copywriting. I will say, yes, let's talk next week, but this is a blog post that explains how my service works. If you could read that in advance or just scan it in advance, then when we talk, I'll obviously answer any other questions. And the call is shorter and it's much more, it's punchier and it's quicker. And because the person comes to the call with the information and we're just, ready to get going. And I actually spend that time learning more about them and their business rather than them having to ask me questions. So does your content work for your business? That's a good question to ask yourself. And in order to do that, we need to take that step back and work out, what do we want to achieve? What do we want to sell? And we do that when we think about strategy, right?
Yeah, I love that because I think there's so much what you said just now in this couple of minutes.
Sorry.
But I love it. I think, the golden nuggets are just all over. But I think one of the things that you said, which is so important, apart from just writing content for SEO purposes in order to be ranked, further up on Google search, apart from of just writing content that your audience could relate to, but the content that relates to your business is so important as well, because not just are you telling people about what you're doing, people are also learning more about who you are, about what you're doing, and that strengthens the relationship so much more. It gives so much more clarity about what you're doing, but also it enhances people's capability of going like, this is the person I need. This is the person that I want to work with. It gives you credibility as well. Yeah. So I really love that you're saying that. And I think sometimes for the sake of creating content, we always tend to go like, I just need to create something and get it out there. But we feel also this kind of niggly thing inside of us. But if I have to create content now and talk about my business, people are going to feel that I'm selling to them. But that's not the case. That's a mindset thing. You creating content based on your business in order to showcase a little bit more about how you can help them. And I think if you come from that kind of mindset, the content is really super. And there will be people who connect with that.
Yes, you're coming from a place of service, right? So you're saying, okay, so I have this person ask me this question over a discovery call. Then this another person asks me the same question over and I've discovered it. And then you find yourself either repeating the same thing over and over again, or typing it up over and over again. So why don't you just write it up once? Or it doesn't have to be in writing, because I do blogging, for me it's writing, but it can be a video, it can be an audio message, it can be anything that works for you. It can be an infographic if you can do stuff like that, or get it done. Whatever way works for you. And again, as you said, I think it strengthens your brand as well. If you do send, I don't know, a PDF that explains how everything you need to know to work with me. Like if I receive that, I'll be okay. Wow. Okay, this person knows what they're doing. They've done it before. Clearly, they're prepared. And look at this, they've prepared a PDF. So, I mean, this is official. And it just elevates it. Like the whole conversation is on a different level at some point. But it's from a place of service. You're not at that point selling. You're just saying, here you go, here's the information you need to know to work with me. It's up to you if you want to, but here it is. And it's customer service, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think the other thing you said there also makes a lot of sense, because when we talk about content writing, and this is now for the audience, for you listening or watching this video, when we talk about content writing, it's not just blog posts, okay? This could be any content via social media. This could be any content via video, via podcast, anything like that, any content that you're creating. It goes into all those kind of layers, basically. But here's the thing. You don't have to feel that you need to write a blog, okay? Personally, for me, I'm not a big fan of writing. It's not my strong point. And I've tried in the beginning to write blog posts, and to be honest, didn't like it at all. But I love my podcast and I love talking, unfortunately, and my husband will agree and he'll shake his head. But I love talking. I love having these conversations with people. And that's how my content is going out to my audience. So it doesn't matter what kind of platform you're using to create or to get your content out there. It all starts with what you're creating and how you're creating it and how that resonates with your audience. So exactly what Sara said here. But Sara, I think this segues quite nicely into batching, because I'm a big batching fan. And I think batching content is something that people know about, but they feel like it's too hard to do. I'm not going to do it. What would you say about that?
Yes, again, it comes, I guess, with a little bit of strategy and a little bit of planning. So obviously batching does save you time. So for example, I don't know if you do this, but it sounds like you already had podcast interviews today. So like if you batch your recordings one after the next, you're kind of using the same energy and the same task. You don't have to kind of switch tasks. I mean, it's really hard for me to go from this conversation to then put my head down into a website, a client's website, because my space isn't there. I'm like in teaching conversation mode and now I have to go into writing mode. So it's different. It's very hard to switch in the day. So if you can, regardless of what you do, but you have coaching calls, you have to continuously switch your energy, and that wastes so much of our time. So if we can dedicate a day a week or half a day a week and say, okay, this is dedicated to planning my content for the next month. Can you believe you can plan content for a month in half a morning? You can. You just have to sit down and work out how to do it. So for me, I always advise people. So again, I do it for blog posts, but you can apply that to any type of content. So I do that for blog posts, and I would say plan 4 blog posts a month for the following month. So you sit down today, you plan your content for December. So you decide what 4 topics you're going to cover, and then you do that in steps. So if this takes you, say, an hour of your time, it'll take you probably less, half an hour to decide, okay, I'm going to write about these 4 topics. You can then take the next hour to actually start outlining them. And what I mean by that is literally going, okay, so this topic is going to be about this. I'm going to cover roughly these 5 points. And you literally make some notes. You just have a rough title. Underneath, you type up like 5-7 bullet points. And this is what I'm going to cover in that blog post or in a piece of content. Then under that, you just write some notes, just free-flowing ideas, sentences, not even complete sentences, just notes. but you'll end up with probably 100, 200 words already of just notes, but that is a skeleton for a blog post. That is your structure. And you can do that times 4. So in an hour, you've done that. Then maybe next week, next Friday, you decide, okay, I'm going to dedicate another hour or 2 to content creation. And at that point, you start drafting. So you go into those bullet points and you turn them into full sentences and paragraphs. And by magic, by the end of it, you've got a draft, a draft or a blog post. It's not perfect, but that comes later. So again, leave it another few days and you start editing. And then I suggest at this point you do it one by one, because it just needs a different type of energy. You need to concentrate on that piece alone. But and I normally do 3 rounds. One where I check the structure, so I check logically, like, have I included the right type of information? Is the information in the right order? Does it make sense to someone who doesn't do my job? Because sometimes we need to put ourselves in the shoes of our readers, obviously. So does it make sense? Are they following me, or have I jumped the gun a little bit? So I do that kind of structural edit, and then you edit it for grammar, vocabulary, that kind of thing. Although there's so many tools now that do it for us, so that's not. And I do a third kind of proofreading thing to see if I've missed anything. But again, when it's my own content, I do it for clients, but when it's your own content, you kind of get tired of seeing it after a while. So once you've edited, then the last thing you need to do is to make sure that you've added your images, nice white space on the page. So like formatting, things like bullet points, bolding some of the text to make, because people, let's face it, people don't read every single word that we write. They just scan through. And so to help them do that, have nice big titles, nice highlighting in bold some of the key phrases or sentences you want them to pick up on, and then bullet points, so make it easy for them to scan through and consume the content. Optimize everything if you know how to do it, and then press publish. The great thing about this is that in the last 2 steps, the editing and the polishing and publishing, you don't have to do yourself. Actually, this is a good time where you can hand it over to an editor, content writer, your VA, someone who can just take care of the rest of those things. But once you've done your planning and your outlining and your drafting, you're kind of good to go, because someone else can then take over and do the rest for you. So even if you don't enjoy those steps, by doing it in steps and by batching those steps yourself, you can then hand over and get someone to help you, so you speed up the process.
Yeah, I love the steps that you include there, because it's so easy actually when you put it in retrospect, when you say, hey, I'm going to create content for the next 4 weeks. So now you've got one morning, half an hour, and you decide what are the 4 topics that I'm going to talk about. 1 topic every week for the next month.
Yeah.
And then from there say, okay, the next hour, I'm going to put the bullet points underneath each of those topics about what I want to bring to light in each of those topics. And that's basically the bulk of it, because that's where people really stop. But once it's on paper and you've got those bullet points, the sentences and the paragraphs that you're going to bring in between for each of those topics is just going to flow, and it's just going to come. And I like how you're saying then is then taking a morning as an example, say a Friday morning, and then go, okay, so which topic am I going to take now, and start putting some sentences to it, and then take the next one, put some sentences to it, and just start growing it a little bit. And let's say, as an example, this might take you, not every single day, but say 2 weeks worth of work. And correct me if I'm wrong here. So if you're a busy mom and you only have certain times in the day that you can do this kind of work, but within 2 weeks, you can have 4 good posts ready, and then you schedule them, and they're gonna drip feed through every single week. But then now you can go, oh, okay, I've got 4 weeks of content being drip fed out. Let me start now next week and start with the 4 weeks thereafter. Before you know it, you're gonna be months in advance with all the content, and you're going to go, oh, well, I don't need to create content anymore for a little while, because I've got enough content now to last me the next 6-12 months. And it's so easy, but you've got to make that start. And I think that's the crucial point.
The decision to make a start. And also it ties back with the strategy, because you could then say, okay, January, okay, now I'm planning content for January. What's happening in January? Well, I've got a mastermind, or I'm launching an online course, or I'm doing this, I'm offering this new service. And so what kind of content do you think your readers need to consume in order to buy that service, that masterclass, that online course, that whatever that product that you're offering? And so only obviously you know that you as the business owner have this vision, and you know what you're going to be launching. And it's just a matter of putting yourself in the shoes of your readers and say, okay, what questions do I need to answer before? Because you can't turn up January 1st and say, hey, my masterclass is tomorrow, buy it. It's not going to work. So you have to have done that work in advance, a month, 2 months, however long it might be, depending on the service and on the price. And that allows you to then take the step back and just go, okay, so I'm launching this thing in January, February, March. What do I need leading up to then to create in order for my readers, my prospective customers and clients to make a decision and just realize this is the thing for them. But you can't turn up, and obviously it's not going to work if you turn up the day before on a white screen, blank cursor, and go, oh, I don't know what to write. Of course, because it has to be planned in advance, and you have to have a strategy. So why not plan your January content now?
Honestly, it makes my life so much easier, because I've got enough content now to last me all the way up to the end of this year. So I've done all of my recordings during the first and the second quarter of this year. And with all of those recordings, scheduled, ready to go out all the way until the end of the year, I didn't need to rush to stress about my content going out, my podcast episodes going out every Thursday to my audience, because it was all done in advance. So that other time in between, I could focus on my business, and I could focus on the marketing and what I needed to do with my business. And now I've said, okay, November, December, I'm scheduling interviews again, which will then be published in the new year. And it just makes sense. And people don't always know it. I've had people come to me, it's like, how do you do so many interviews for every week? It's like, well, I don't. I batch it. And it's not because you're being sneaky. It's just you're being very, very clever about it. And I think people need to understand that when you batch content, regardless if it is on video, if it's audio, if it's a blog, social media, it doesn't matter. You're just being very strategic, but also clever. And you're making your life so much easier.
And what you just said there, because to people, you are showing up every single week, right?
Yeah.
So to achieve that consistency,
exactly,
that is key. You've got visibility. It's key to visibility, really. And you don't achieve that if you're planning your content off the cuff. Only if you've kind of sat down with your strategy and decided to plan ahead, batch produce it, only then you achieve that consistency. Otherwise, you will miss weeks where you disappear because your week has gone so busy with client work that you haven't managed to create content. It happens to me, happens to the best of us, unless you are, you're planning it ahead. So I'm very impressed with this. It's fantastic.
Honestly.
Doing a great job there.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, no, batching is definitely, it saved my life. I didn't do it in the beginning when I started my podcast, and it was a nightmare. And then I learned about batching. I was like, how come I never knew about this? But it happened at the right time, and it was the best decision I've made. But this is something that I'm also very curious about, because we talked about batching, we talked about content creation, but I think the other thing that people don't really realize that could be very good for them is repurposing content.
Yes, correct. Another thing that you do very well. So obviously, I know you're doing this as a podcast interview and as a video. So that already is like 2 different mediums, 2 different channels. You're probably reaching different audiences with that. It's fantastic, but you can go, the next step, which is then turning all this video and audio content into written content. So once it's written, then you've got so many formats to play with as well. So you could write a blog post. I don't recommend that you take the transcript and make it into a blog post, because that will be probably 8,000 words and no one wants to read that. But if you turn that into a blog post, and again, it's what I was saying earlier, make it easier for people to make it scannable, to just have bold bullet points, nice title, But making to a blog post, then it could be an article on LinkedIn, again, reaching a completely different audience. So you can have it on your website, you could have it then as a LinkedIn article. Then one day you can, to promote the podcast, for example, you can say, oh, these are the key points we touched on in a LinkedIn post. Now you can do stories on LinkedIn, like you can on Facebook and on Instagram. So there's all these different things. Once it's written, the content is written, you've got all these formats to play with. You can make it into a slideshow presentation. You could even, do a talk about some of the content that, if you have, do you ever do solo episodes when you don't tend to?
I used to in the beginning. I might bring it back. Actually, that was my plan for 2021 to have some interviews, but then some solo episodes in between. So watch the space, everyone. But yeah, that's definitely something in the working.
So solo interviews, obviously, because it's you presenting content effectively, and it's already kind of structured in your mind because you probably structure it before in your notes. Then it becomes an easy piece that you can then turn into a talk, a workshop. There's so many different things that you can do with it. You've got different formats to play with. So so you've got different mediums, you've got video, you've got audio, you've got written, but then within those different mediums, you then have different formats. So like I said, for written, you've got blog posts, you've got presentations, you've got articles, social media posts. For video, it could be a recorded video like this, it could be a live video, it could be little snippets that you share on social media. So you've got so many different things to play with. And again, you need to make a decision as to, first of all, what you enjoy. Where does it all start from? Am I a writer? Am I a talker? Where do you get your energy from? Start with that source. That's where you produce the content. That's your content creation source. Everything else you can repurpose. And again, you just need to decide where are you going to be, because if you then look at all the possibilities, that's like potentially endless. So you don't want the same type of, the same content exactly everywhere. But for example, if Instagram works for you, then how can you repurpose your key content, pieces of content on Instagram? How would you do it through stories? How would you do it through your feed? Or wherever other platform you might be. But that's, and again, repurposing, like some of the bits that we talked about earlier, is very easily something that you can outsource if you don't want to do it yourself. It's once you've created it, once you've done the original creation, it's very easy to then hand it over to someone and say, turn this big video, turn it into a 60-second snippet for Facebook, or it's very easy to outsource to others, or you can get those little snippets from podcasts as well, audio ones that you can then share on social media, like 60 seconds preview of what you're going to be talking about. That's repurposing. And it serves as promotion, because obviously you're promoting your content, but it also helps you with visibility and with reaching people, because not everyone listens to podcasts. People like different things. Some people like watching YouTube videos, some people like podcasts, some people like to scan through blog posts really quickly in the evening when they put the kids to bed. So it depends on how much time you have and how you like to consume content. So if you as a business owner put it out in different formats and different mediums, then you allow more people to come to you, which makes sense, right?
Yeah. And I think what you say is so valuable, because I've had people coming to me, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, I'm on Pinterest, I'm on LinkedIn, and I've got to create content for every single one of those platforms. It's like, no. You create one piece of content and you repurpose it through all of the platforms. As an example, in my Facebook group, I do videos every Tuesday and every Thursday, live videos, Facebook Lives. And then what I do is I download those videos, and those I transcribe, and those I put into blog posts. But then also I take those videos and I put them on Pinterest. And then I take those Pinterest videos and I then repurpose them back into IGTV. So, but the whole goal for me is, at the end of the day, because there's a purpose behind everything, the whole goal is for me is in order to get people back to my website. So whatever I do, it's always to take people back to my website, because I feel it's important to get that traffic to my website. And then from there, get people to either sign up to my email list. So it's a whole kind of strategy about what it flows. And I think that's also important. We spoke about strategy in the beginning, but you've got to understand what the strategy is. What is the main purpose of what you want people to do, where you want people to show up, to see you more, to hear more about you. And then once you repurpose that kind of content, decide where you want to take that audience to.
Yes.
What is the next step?
Yes, you can't be everywhere, and it's probably not the right answer to be everywhere.
True.
You need to be where your audience are, but yes, again, it needs to make sense for your business, right? It needs to all feed back into your business. We're not creating content for the fun of it or for the sake of it, although it is fun in the process if we create the right type of content. But it has to then feed back into the business. Otherwise, it's not content marketing. It's the hobby.
Yeah, basically.
And so, yes, you need to make that decision up front that where is it all going? Where does it feed to? And what does it help me achieve? Yes. Which is why it's important to start with the question, what are you selling? What do you want to sell more of? Yes. And how are you going to do that? You've decided this through your website and through your email list, which is how you build relationships with your clients. So you've got to make that decision in advance, and I guess that's what people come to you for, to work this out.
But also it makes sense to then understand that you don't need to be everywhere, because for me in particular, when I talk to my clients, it's not about getting overwhelmed, and there's so much out there for us to easily get overwhelmed with. It's about just choosing one or two entities that worked for you, one or two tactics really. So you said you love LinkedIn, you're predominantly all over LinkedIn, and that's a tactic that works for you. Not so much on Instagram, but it's because your client base is on LinkedIn. So that's where you will show up. That's where you will repurpose your content to the whole time, and different parts of content you'll use that over and over again. So creating content can be fun, and it should be fun. It's not about getting overwhelmed and feeling you need to be everywhere. You need to create new pieces of content for every platform. That is not the case. If you create one solid piece of content and then repurpose it on one or two platforms where your clients will see that content,
right?
That's it. There's nothing more to it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. But what Sara said is really important. It's about creating content with a purpose of obviously servicing somebody with your products or your services. So it's about helping somebody at the end of the day. It's not just about creating content for the sake of it, because then it becomes a hobby. And let's face it, we're all in business in order to obviously help people and see ourselves grow within our business. So Sara, oh my gosh, I love this. I get so excited when I talk about content creation and repurposing and all of those things. I've got so many more examples to give, but I fear that if I do so, everybody might be going like, whoa, this has been going on for some time. Before we conclude with everything, you have got an amazing freebie available for the audience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we touched on batching, but really there's a lot more to it. So I have a 7-day free email course on batching your content creation. Again, applies to blogging mainly, but you can use that for any type of content that you create. So if you subscribe to my email list, you get these 7 emails landing in your inbox that explain the process, the batching process, how to do it step by step in 7 steps, so that you can start to plan your content ahead and get into the position you're in, which is amazing. I am so impressed with that, honestly. It's great.
Bless you.
You're the queen.
So what we're going to do is that link for that freebie will be in the show notes. So if you're still struggling to batch or to think about creating content and how you can do it in order to not be on the back foot, but to feel, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I've got content being published every single time it needs to be published, and I don't have to feel like I need to create something last minute. Then by all means, go and get this freebie. So the link is below in my show notes. And then also Sara's LinkedIn profile will be there available. So if you want to connect with Sara, if you want to reach out to her and maybe discuss a little bit more with her about how she can help you out, in particular, because maybe you are not a big fan of creating content and you want somebody to help you with that. She's an amazing content writer. I love the things that she's putting out on LinkedIn. So by all means, go and make contact with Sara through LinkedIn, and I'm sure she'd love to help you out. Sara, thank you so much. Is there any last tips you want to give the audience before we say goodbye?
No, but just be like you. Just in order to achieve consistency, really, and control. That
Oh,
is the way. That is the way. Get your strategy on, start planning, and repurpose. Batch and repurpose. They're all important concepts. You're living and breathing proof that it works. So let's do more of that.
and
This
have
is so much
fun.
fun.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Have fun with it. Honestly, it's so much fun. I can't tell you because it just feels amazing. I think maybe because I'm a little bit of a control freak, but because I know it works. Honestly, it's so much fun when you get into it.
Well, you found the source of content that works for you, and that's what we need to do. That's what we all need to try and achieve as business owners, and then it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, listen, Sarah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time being here with us. Obviously, you and I are still going to be in touch. We've got a great relationship already when we talk about certain things and in different networks. So we'll see each other very soon again. But thank you again for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun. I could go on for hours. That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Take care. Speak soon.